Hello Austria. At the end of this funeral march, we want to say a few words to the assembled masses here. Words, not only about the danger posed by the security policy for our basic rights, but also about security itself, because the argument of these security policy makers is that we need these laws to guarantee our security. But even the basic assumption that more power to the authorities, the police, leads to more security is wrong. We just need to look at the US and Great Britain, where the authorities have more power, where the citizens are monitored much more than here. Yet, it is more dangerous, and the crime rate is higher. Once in the US, a comparative study examined in detail the powers of police and prosecutors and the crime rate. The correlation was 0. This means, there is no evidence that these powers, these safety laws had any impact on safety levels. Proper is the opposite. Excessive measures provoked resistance, such as before and during the G8 summit. Humiliation of Muslims, for example, provokes retaliation. Military operations against the will of the people are concerned to promote international terrorism. This is not a security policy. This is terrorism. Even if you can use the baton instead of a conversation, words will always retain their power. In a constitutional state, the security is in good hands. And like the politicians repeat to claim, the constitutional state doesn't need to hide behind a police and preventive state. On the contrary, the constitutional state guarantees our security far more, because it avoids excessive action, dissenters had air to breathe, because it protects the innocent, instead of arrest them purely as a precautionary measure. What is the situation with security in totalitarian China, where the police can do everything? Or in the US with their Guantanamo, where people get tortured to get insights on terrorism? Or in the UK, where you get filmed 200 times a day by cameras? Is it safer than in Austria with our fundamental rights and our federal constitutional court? It is more dangerous in these countries, the crime rate is higher, and this shows, a police state is creating insecurity. Really effective measures to prevent crime are quite different. You would have to specifically run crime prevention, working with people who are crime endangered or have already committed crimes. In districts, in prisons, where people can become criminals because of the prevailing conditions. Scientific studies show that this lowers the probability of recidivism and actually increases our security. But what does our government? They spend millions for surveillance technology, biometric passports, in data retention, in video surveillance, and, at the same time, the funds for targeted prevention work get shortened year by year. That's not a security policy. Who really wants to save human life has to get the view on traffic, tobacco, alcohol consumption, poor nutrition. These are areas where disease and death could be easily avoided and reduced, and that is where the policy does very little. The profit of industry is more important. This is a hypocritical policy. Therefore, we need an alternative security policy that ensures greater safety and less supervision. We have to rely on targeted prevention projects. And what the prevailing security policy absolutely forgets is the subjective security, the sense of security. They would have to conduct education. They would have to tell people how they can protect themselves. Politicians think that they would get the sense of security to grips with more and more surveillance. That doesn't work, because in order to justify these new laws they always increase the fear. Our appeal to the so-called civil rights parties. We still see too little in terms of alternative security policy. We need concrete programs and specific proposals. Realistic proposals. You could divert money for surveillance technology, and instead, invest it in preventional activities with endangered citizens. We need a moratorium on new laws for surveillance. We need an independent, systematic review about the effectiveness of existing laws. We need straight lines. We do not want a mass gathering and monitoring of the entire population. People should not be afraid of the government. The government should fear their people. Convince other people. Spread our flyers. Invite speakers in your club or association. Write your own speeches. Talk to your representatives in the public consultation and convince them. Get involved in civil rights organizations. Together we are strong. We hope this little speech could demonstrate that this law and order safety policy not only harms our liberties, but missed its own goal and even threatened our security. We hope we have made clear that an alternative security policy is needed, and that's why we ask you to bring yourself into action for our freedom. The freedom our parents and grandparents have fought for and our children will painfully miss, if we fail to act. This time we will not wait, until it's too late. It is our turn, our time has come now. The civil rights are the Mother Earth on which the good seed can grow. They are the basics of our society. The material politicians built their so-called new security architecture should come from the foundation of our society. This shaky tower of security will be built by the reduction of basic rights. The result is that our liberty is only shaky and our country gets vulnerable to extremism. This is the wrong way. Artists lie to show the truth. Politicians lie to cover up the truth. Our defense of freedom is not a fair-weather politic. We know that our freedom and our open society can be abused. We know that our bug-free telephone, mobile phone and internet usage also helps criminals. We know about child abuse behind the protection of private homes. We know that Austria is perhaps rest for international terrorists and that they could live among us. We know that an attack that would kill hundreds of us can happen at any time. So, why are we trying to avert that everything gets done to prevent these terrible crimes? Because freedom is the foundation of our democracy. Because even a series of terrorist attacks must not pose a serious threat on democracy in Austria. Because we cannot allow to kill ourselves by fear of death itself. And because these measures are simply useless in the fight against such criminals. Life is a risk. And a free and independent life is an even bigger risk. But we want this risk. We want this freedom. So, in the name of democracy, let us use our power. Let us stand together. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance, give the youth a future and old age security. Oppressors promised that too. Therefore, they could seize power. But that was a lie, just like everything else they promised. These criminals, dictators free themselves but they enslave the people. The only tyrant we acknowledge in this world is the quiet inner voice, our conscience. Let's break these chains, let us fight for a better world. Let us fight for freedom in the world. That is a goal worth fighting for. Down with the oppression, hatred and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Comrades, in the name of democracy, let us fight.
Knowledge is free. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.